If we may all take our seats for this last panel, we all promise it's going to be short, sweet, specific, policy-oriented, because we're talking with three experts that focus on getting things done. They will be getting things done soon, and they have been getting things done in their career. Welcome everybody. My name is Yiorgos Kakouris. I'm a Brussels correspondent for Cypriot media in Brussels. And with us we have Yiasemidou, the presidency coordinator from a permanent representation of Cyprus to the EU. She'll be in charge of coordinating basically the difficult task of running the presidency of Cyprus in the European Union next year. We have Dr. Zsolt Darvas, if I'm saying it right, for a senior fellow at Bruegel, specialization in macroeconomics and international economics, and Dr. Eleni Zika, who is the head of scientific impact and feedback to policy from the European Research Council. We focus on this discussion today in our last panel to the future. In 1 year from now, the Cypriot presidency of the Council of the EU will be in full swing. Hopefully we'll be discussing it again here with Oxygon and the Cyprus Forum, perhaps getting into more detail in all the things that you've seen and you probably know derive and come out of any conversation on Cyprus, all the themes that it's brimming with. But for today, we'll talk about the priorities that are being finalized of the Cyprus presidency, of the trio that is underway with Poland and Denmark, and also try to focus onto the goals of the EU as they pertain to the Cyprus presidency when it comes to innovation and competitiveness, which is the theme of the day, as you've heard from other speakers in Brussels due to the presentation of the competition compass. And we can start with Mrs. Yiasemidou. We were talking about the priorities of the Cypriot presidency. We know that the trio with Poland and Denmark has been organized around themes of security, prosperity and democracy, with the Poles focusing especially on security because of their own and also the global context at this moment. I know it might be too soon, but I know that also the priorities are being shaped right now. So what is the common theme that Cyprus will be focusing on its work, coordinating the work of the Council of the EU, and how do you expect this theme to be informed by the ongoing political problem that you've discussed extensively in the previous panel? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Yiorgos. Maybe I will start with the last part of your question. You know, our political problem is a top priority. This guides all our policy as a country and as an EU member state. The Cyprus problem is a European problem. And in the last 20 years of our EU membership, a very comprehensive framework was put in place that defines the EU-Turkey relations and makes a links with the Cyprus problem. Now, as a rotating presidency of the Council, we are expected to act as an honest broker. Each rotating presidency is expected to advance the European agenda. And as the two ambassadors explained in their introductory remarks before, this European agenda is to a large extent pre-established by the EU and global challenges, by the strategic agenda of the leaders, by the political guidelines of President von der Leyen. And it is actually the Commission that has the right of initiative to put on the table new legislation and policies. I would say that around 80% of the work that a rotating president should do is to advance this pre-established agenda, as we call it, the inherited agenda. Then the other 20%, it's a margin that the presidency, a rotating presidency, has to put an emphasis on issues of particular interest. As you said, Yiorgos, the trio identified three main pillars: the security, prosperity, and democracy. It is true that Poland has put an emphasis on security, but I would say that this is mostly in terms of communication. If we take a step and we look at the Polish 7 main priorities, we will see that these priorities cover all the 3 pillars. In our case, we also aim to do the same, cover the 3 pillars of security, prosperity, and democracy. But now, if you ask me about this special lens, this added value that Cyprus would bring, I would say that Cyprus will want to prove that it is a mature member state that will successfully lead the work of the EU. And moreover, it was something highlighted by all the speakers today. In this current complex geostrategic environment, we will want to promote our role as a reliable partner. We want to use the privileged relations that we have with all the countries of our region to put in place reinforced and mutually beneficial partnerships between the EU and our neighborhood, Eastern Mediterranean and the Gulf. And I will leave it here.
Thank you for your outlining of the priorities and the approach that Cyprus will be using next year. Moving on to Dr. Darvas, thank you for being with us today. I would like you, as an expert in economic affairs, to talk a bit how small member states such as Cyprus could contribute to this wider goal of competitiveness, of the increase of the competitiveness of the EU, given that it's a small economy with arguably small capabilities, and also how does the service sector specifically play into these discussions about competitiveness, because it's a sector where Cyprus is particularly strong, but it's not a sector that is usually discussed when it comes to European competitiveness to the same extent.
Thank you very much. Now, let me start with the services sector, and then I come back to the small state and Cyprus issue. And just let me recall that there are lots of reports, including the report by President Draghi, that the United States has a faster productivity growth than the European Union. Now, let me ask the question about the United States, about the service sector and the manufacturing sector. So, who thinks that in the US, the manufacturing sector is a driver of main productivity growth? Please raise your hand if you think that. Okay, who thinks that in the US, the services sector is the main driver of productivity growth? Okay, so everybody is shy, but at least a few hands are there, and these hands are correct. So if you look at the US, manufacturing productivity was practically flat over the past 20 years, and productivity growth came exclusively from the services sector. And if you look at within services, not surprisingly, you will find that information technologies, IT, and all related, were the main drivers of US productivity advances. So clearly, services have a crucial role in driving productivity and our economies. And indeed, now coming back to the smaller states, like Cyprus, which has very rich history of various kind of services, including financial services, certain shipping services, then accounting and related services. So clearly has I think, a major role. Also, small countries can also play a major role because small countries can specialize on certain things. And they can also, give an example for the rest of the EU. For example, let me just take the example of Estonia. Estonia is thought to have a super effective digital government system, which is a kind of a benchmark for the rest of the EU. And I think Cyprus can do something same in terms of IT, fintech. Also, Europe is lagging behind with artificial intelligence with regards to the United States and China. Again, Cyprus can have such a role. So focusing, I think, on specific services, a small country, even Cyprus, can have an impact on the wider European developments.
Thank you, Dr. Darvas, and it's a good opportunity to segue into the next, our next speaker, because as our colleague has mentioned here, Cyprus can focus on services when it comes to innovation and when it comes to innovation, especially in IT. We've seen Dr. Zika, Cyprus ramping up its efforts to foster innovation in the private sector. However, the expenditure on R&D remains among the lowest in Europe. Do you see that the country is in a position to lead this discussion on a European level, and how perhaps can it take advantage of the upcoming presidency to boost its own efforts?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this panel. I should say I feel like a little bit as an outsider, actually trying from a purely research base to respond to this question, but I'll take the opportunity, building from the previous speaker, to make the connection between competitiveness and research, investment in research and scientific excellence, which I think was also highlighted in Mario Draghi's report. In fact, one cannot be without the other. And I think Cyprus is actually, in spite of its low R&D expenditure still compared to the European average, is in a good place actually to lead certainly discussions under the upcoming presidency, but also tangibly make investments in strong and robust research systems that can allow it to translate scientific knowledge into innovation and therefore build also its own competitiveness positioning within the European system and economy more internationally speaking. I should say, as I represent a program that funds fundamental science, Cyprus is actually doing surprisingly well, both for its size and for its level of investment, in fact, in terms of research and development. You're doing better than Greece, if I may. And in terms of winning grants from the program that I represent, so the European Research Council, you are on par with France when we compare the success rate vis-à-vis the R&D investment. So I think these are important considerations to keep into mind when you are thinking about the future ahead as a country. I should also say that there are very interesting examples of researchers who have come back to Cyprus to build teams, especially in areas which are emerging and part of also of what we currently consider critical technologies, so biotech. There are scientists who have actually managed to win several awards from the ERC, starting from the very, very young base of until advanced grants, or very senior ones, and who have managed to translate the research results that they produce into innovation. So they have actually even received, as a result of that, funding for proof of concept grants, and can be also competitive in the European Innovation Council program. So I think Cyprus has definitely the human capital and the potential to build from for the future in terms of competitiveness. I think it's very positive that it has been investing in having extroverted research systems that attract talent from abroad, and I think it would be important to build on that and to broaden that capacity building effort into the future. I can give you many more statistics, but I think there are a lot of role models you can look to. There's actually, as I was researching to come here and speak to you today, I found that there was at least one investigator, actually I should name, in fact, Mr. Stylianopoulos, who's working at the intersection of biophysics and cancer treatments. And I think it's really, really important to see how he managed to build the capacity of bridging scientific disciplines, teams that are interdisciplinary, that are attracting talent from abroad. And he has done this starting literally from scratch, based solely on scientific excellence. I think this is very interesting. And on a positive note, I should say, when you look at the positioning of Cyprus in the EU R&D scoreboard, you are listed actually as a strong innovator. So I think there's a lot of potential to build from.
Well, thank you all for the specific ideas and contributions to the debate, and I wish we had time to do much more than that. But thanks everyone for sticking to the end, even after such a tiring day, and a lot of things that were discussed. Perhaps if you allow me to tie things together, I mean, these discussions show that no matter the other political issues that Cyprus is facing, it is able to take the tools of innovation and practical, especially when it comes to financial services, etc., in order to build a new way of doing things. But of course, to do that, we have to start including our Turkish Cypriot compatriots into the conversation, and we hope that soon we'll be able to have a Turkish Cypriot leadership that will be much more capable and amenable to dialogue with the Turkish Cypriot side. Thank you everyone for being here with us. I would like to I'm asked to close the forum as well on behalf of the organizers. Thank you, Nicolas, for the opportunity to moderate this discussion. Thank you to our hosts, Mr. Furlas and the EPP. I hope to see you all next year in maybe perhaps wider discussions when it comes to Cyprus and the role that we prove that it can have inside the EU, not just as a problem, but as a place that produces solutions. Thanks.